So first of all, tonight's class, as always, is in the memory of Yitzchak Ben Yosef. The Shama should have an elevation. And good evening, or good morning from Sydney. Alex is watching us in Sydney. Good evening from hello to Colorado. Hello, Carmen, watching in Texas. Okay, so we're going to, it's the 9 days. Today is Rosh Chodesh Menachem Av, which is the beginning of the month of Menachem Av, which literally means the comfort of Av. We'll talk about that soon. It's the beginning of the 9-day period, a time of sadness and mourning and grief amongst the Jewish people. So maybe we can make the argument that we're not allowed to say jokes during the 9 days because we need to be depressed and sad. But it's a joke about sadness and mourning and death. So maybe a sad joke. It's actually, the punchline's pretty sad too. You'll see. So there's guys in the cemetery, but it fits to what I want to talk about. It's a segue. It's a joke. Well, I'll say it with a sad face. Everyone moan instead of laughing, and there we go. Fulfill our obligations to be sad during the 9 days. And there's guys in the cemetery. It's a sad joke because really the punchline's sad anyway. It's like, so this guy is leaving a cemetery and he sees someone at a grave nearby, and he's crying and crying with such intensity, such tremendous tears. Ay, why did you die? Ay, why did you die? Why did you have to die? See a man crying with such intensity. Why did you have to die? He comes over, maybe to comfort him, to give him some. So he says, I see this must have been someone very close to you that you're really, really mourning their loss. They just passed away. He said, no, he died 20 years ago. 20 years ago, and you're still so sad. Must have really been a very close friend, a very close family member. He says, no, I never met him before. He says, never met him, and you're crying. I'm crying. Why do you have to die? So we never met him. Who was he? He says, oh, it was my wife's first husband. You're laughing. You're supposed to be moaning, Michelle. Yeah. Sad on the inside. Okay. Hello, Ravit. Good. Everyone can hear me. Baruch Hashem. Hello, Marsha. Hello, Joe from Pennsylvania. Okay, so let's talk about mourning, about sadness. And comfort. No, he's laughing. It's safe to laugh. It's okay.
No, my aunt just told me about that. She was invited to a bar mitzvah of a relative that she hasn't seen God knows how long. That never went to his kid's bar mitzvah, and then she apologized at another event to her, saying that I was mourning my mother, the loss of my mother.
And she was there.
My mother was lost to dead for like 3 years.
I hear you.
Still mourning.
Still mourning. Okay.
3 years later.
Okay, anyway, so here's the deal, my friends. Let's talk about the mourning of the Jewish... Michelle's laughing. She's moaning. Okay, anyway. So we're in the month of sadness. A month of mourning for the destruction of the first temple, of the second temple, of the many calamities that befell the Jewish people specifically during this time. Although we're also praying to God that this year should not be a month of sadness. Mashiach should come, and all the threats from all of our enemies around the world, Iran and all of their proxies that are threatening to kill us, God willing, our learning tonight should be in their merit. They should see tremendous open miracles, even greater than the miracles we saw last time Iran tried attacking us, which was tremendous miracles, even more. Okay. So in addition to the sadness and the mourning that we're meant to feel now, subtly, there's also a message of comfort in the month we're in. How do I know there's a message of comfort? Because the very name that the Jews have called this month for centuries, for thousands of years, has been the name of Menachem Av. Right? That's what we said today's Rosh Chodesh, Menachem Av. What does Menachem Av mean? Anyone knows? Anyone watching online? Menachem is exactly comfort. The name Menachem, oh, there you go. Menachem Mendel is sitting right here. Menachem means comfort. And in fact, it's very much connected to Tisha B'Av. My daughter Menucha was born on Tisha B'Av, but Menachem means comfort. Comfort. And after, in fact, on the after Tisha B'Av, we talk about Nachamu Ami, the Shabbos of comfort. Shabbos Nachamu, the Shabbos of comfort. And the second half of the month is a month of comfort. With the 7 weeks of Nechama, 7 weeks of consolation from after the 3 weeks, after Tisha B'Av until Elul. But anyway, till the high holidays, sorry. But already from today, today is the beginning of Rosh Chodesh Menachem Av. We already have the obligation of Menachem, which means to comfort. Who are we comforting? What does the word Av mean? You know what Av means, right? Av is a father. Very good. Menachem, you're correct. Av means a father. Abba in Hebrew is a father, or Av is father. So the words Menachem Av mean, Menachem Av means a month of comforting the father. That's what it means. So before I start explaining to you how are we comforting our father, because notice it doesn't say it's a month of Av Menachem, of a father comforting us. It's called the month of us comforting our father. Correct. So Menachem Av, the order, that's in Hebrew grammar. I wanted to comfort my father. It's Menachem Av. Similar, by the way, we find in the prayers of Tisha B'Av, in the Kinos and the Lamentations, there's a lamentation, Menachem Tzion, which means the comfort of Zion. It's a song giving comfort to Zion, to Jerusalem, to Israel on its destruction, on its losing all of its inhabitants, all the Jews. So we comfort Zion, we comfort Israel for its loss. So the month is called Menachem Av, a month when we are meant to give comfort to our Father. Who is our Father? Who's our Father? Exactly. Avinu Shabashamayim, our Father in heaven. So who's the Father that's being comforted in this month of darkness, in this month of exile, in this month of persecution, of being taken away from Israel? It's not God, our Father, comforting us, but it's a month of Menachem Av, a month when we are comforting our Father. So we need to understand this idea. But before I even explain that, I need to answer a question, which is, who said the name of the month is even important? Who even said that the name of the month has to have a message for us? Me in the Bible makes sense because the word of the Bible is from God, right? If something is written in the Torah, who wrote it? God Almighty. So therefore, we need to figure out what lesson can we learn from those words in the Bible. But are the names of the months, the Jewish months, are they from the Torah? Are they in the Bible? You're on the roll today. You're on the roll today. The names of the months, are they written in the Torah? No. In fact, if you look in the Torah, how does the Torah count the months? By? No, we count by the moon. You're right. The cycle, the month goes by the cycle of the 29 days or 30 days of the moon. But the actual, how do we number the months? For example, I'll give you a good example. Today, Chodesh Menachem Av is also the yahrzeit of Aharon, priest. I spoke about this like great on Shabbos, right? For those who were here in Shul on Shabbos, that was a sermon about the yahrzeit of Aharon. And when the Torah says he passed away the first day of this month, it doesn't say on the first day of Menachem Av. It says on the first day of the 5th month of the year. And the months in the Torah, if you look throughout the entire Chumash, every time it counts a month, it's counted as one of the months from the beginning of our calendar then, which was when we left Egypt. So we left Egypt in the 1st month of the year. It doesn't say Nisan. It says we left Chodesh Harishon. And then the Torah was given in Chodesh HaShlishi, in the 3rd month of the year. And Aaron passed away in the 1st day of the 5th month of the year, etc., etc. You will not find anywhere in the Torah the word Nisan or Iyar or Sivan or Av, Menachem Av. You won't find that anywhere. So where did the names of the months that we today we say today's Rosh Chodesh, Menachem Av, where do those words Menachem Av come from? They come from the Jews that left Babylonia, as our scholar in residence correctly said. They come from the Babylonian Jews, as the Talmud Yerushalmi tells us, that when the Jews left Babylon to go back to Israel for the second temple, with Ezra described, approximately the year 350 BCE, they brought back with them these names of the months. So seemingly the names of the months are not biblical. They're not something that requires a tremendous amount of study and to make a whole class on the name of the month. It's not. So why do we actually use these names now, not the biblical months? So the Ramban explains there's actually a prophecy that when the Jews will come back from Babylonia, they'll say, no longer will we remember the months from when we were redeemed from Egypt, but rather we'll remember the months from when we were freed from the second exile, the Babylonian exile. Meaning when we were counting the months, the first month of the year, the second month of the year, what was always in the back of our minds? We're counting from the month of our redemption from Egypt. Just like by way of example, when we count the days of the week in Hebrew. In Hebrew, what's today called? Monday in English, but in Hebrew, what's it called? Yom Sheni. Very good. The second day of the week from Shabbos. There's the first day after Shabbos, and then we have the second day after Shabbos, and the third day after Shabbos, and after the sixth day, we come to Shabbos. So we're all counting. We say today is the second day of the week. In the back of our minds, what are we remembering? Shabbos. So when we count the month, the second month, what are we? Pesach, Geula, redemption, salvation. Now when we say Menachem, which is a name that came from Babylon, remembering salvation from the second exile. But the truth, the names were brought up with which people from Babylonia does not believe. The Rebbe actually says that at least some names. The Babylonians, in Babylonia is when the Jews learned how to connect these names with these months. There's an energy to a month. Every month has its energy. Every word, every name has its energy. And in Babylonia, the Jews learned how to connect the energy of a month with the name of a month. Because month number one, month number two does not convey the energy of that month. Right? You don't really feel the unique energy of this month by saying it's the fifth month of the year. But the Jews were able to learn the secret of how to articulate in a word what is the inner energy of that month. And so what we took from Babylonia was the ability to communicate in a name the energy, the feeling, the purpose of that month. The names are actually, according to the Rebbe anyway, are actually Hebrew names. And Babylon, we just learned how to put them together. And that's why you see different months where the rabbis talk about the meaning of the names that month. For example, the month of Nisan, which is a month of our salvation from Egypt. What is the word Nisan connected to? Miracles. A miracle is a nes, or in plural, nisim is miracles. So whether or not the actual word is a play on the Hebrew word, like you have many words today, even in English, that are really Yiddish words or Hebrew words, they got like somehow like languages kind of, interspersed, or if it was really a Hebrew word to begin with, or a Babylonian word that was meant to convey the idea of the miracles. The point is, names of months are reflective of the energy and the message of that month. Of the Jewish people for all of eternity. And we know that Minhag Yisrael Torah, something which is a Jewish custom, is not just a custom. It has value. Eating latkes on Hanukkah is not just a cultural thing. Once it becomes a custom of the Jewish people, it absorbs a certain power and holiness in and of itself. And therefore, it is up to us to understand. If we want to be able to figure out what is our call of the hour, so to say, what is the divine mission God is giving us in this dark, dark month of historical calamities and destruction for the Jewish people? This month will be a month of miracles. But until now, in the month of darkness for the Jewish people, how do we understand our job? We need to understand the idea that this is a month of Menachem, of where we are giving comfort to our Father. So what does that mean? How are we meant to comfort him? Is he even in pain? Who's in pain in exile? Us or him? Who's suffering in exile? We're both suffering. Very smart. So, okay. Everyone that's watching, hope that you're able to watch. Okay, so let's go right to the text. You all have text. I'm going to share it on my screen as well. I'm going I forgot to open. I got so carried away. I forgot to open up the text on my computer. So I'm going to share with you, my friends, a text from the Gemara in Brachas. And the Gemara makes a very, very famous statement. We're going to read it in the source because it's very important. I want to read it. You should appreciate the source for it. With the Torah, the Talmud is telling us, basically the point is that God himself is suffering. Not just he's in exile with us. God is suffering in exile. We think that we're suffering. Guess what? God is suffering with us, perhaps as much as we are Let's see the text inside. I'm reading from the Gemara Brachas, page 3a. So basically, it's the middle of a story. Story is that Rabbi Yossi was traveling. He went to a ruin to go pray. And while he was there, Elijah the prophet comes to protect him. And Elijah the prophet is guarding the doorway of this cave. Finally, I'm started in the middle of the story because I don't know the whole thing. And after he leaves the cave, he asks Elijah, why did you protect me? And he teaches him not to pray in deserted ruins. It's dangerous to be in a deserted ruin at night. How to pray on the street, the shorter prayer. And then Elijah says to Rabbi Yossi, what voice did you hear in that room? So he tells Rabbi Elijah the prophet, I responded that I heard a heavenly voice, like an echo of the roar of the Holy One, blessed be He, cooing like a dove, and saying, woe to the children, due to whose sins I destroyed my house, burnt my temple, and exiled them among the nations. So God, the voice that Rabbi Yossi hears is the voice of God lamenting on the exile of the Jewish people, saying, woe to my children. Woe to my children who have been exiled. Because of their sins, I destroyed my house, burnt my temple, and exiled them. So Elijah then says to him, by your life and by your head, not only did that voice cry out in that moment, but it cries out 3 times each and every day. Moreover, anytime that God's greatness is evoked, such as when Israel enters the synagogues and the studies halls, and we say the Kaddish, right? What do we say in Kaddish? Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach, may His great name be blessed. At that moment when we are praising and blessing the name of God, the Holy One, blessed be He, shakes his head and says, happy is the King who is thus praised in His house. That was when He had the temple. But now, says God, how great is the pain of the father who exiled his children, and woe to the children who are exiled from their father's table, as their pain only adds to that of their father. These are very intense words. Oy, ma loy la'ov, shehigla esban. Woe to the suffering of the father that was forced to exile his children from his table, and woe to the children who were exiled from their father's table. So what do we see from this pretty dramatic story of Elijah the prophet and Rabbi Yossi outside this cave where he prayed in a dangerous time? What do we see from this story, my friends? God is in exile, and God is in pain, and God is lamenting our exile. And because God is lamenting our exile, we have a moral obligation, we have a spiritual obligation to our Father in heaven, who's also our Father in pain, and to try and comfort our Father from the pain that He's feeling by putting us into exile. I remember reading a story I think it's I've said it before, in the previous Rebbe's memoirs, I think. I don't remember if it wasn't him, it was another boy in his class. I don't remember the context. But it's a very powerful story. Very powerful. It's a very short story, but it's very powerful. And there was a boy, it was one of the generations. Anyway, he was making trouble one day, and he was throwing rocks at the chickens in the courtyard. You know, back then you had roosters and chickens running around in your house. And there were chickens running around, and this boy was terrified and throwing things at them. And obviously, he was faster than the chickens, and he was hitting them on the head and, making them crazy. And they were squawking and running. He was having a lot of fun. Can you imagine for a little kid, it's a lot of fun. You were chasing the chickens, and they're jumping, and you're hitting them with little pebbles. His father came out of the house, heard all the noise, I guess, all the chickens squabbling. His father, I don't know how old he was, throwing rocks and terrorizing the chickens. The father was very angry. Tsar balachak, to torture living animals, is a sin in the Torah. It's forbidden to make animals suffer for no reason. His father took his son into his office. He took, back then everyone had hanging on the wall the belt, nailed on the wall just for that purpose. And for the first time, the only time that this boy was ever hit by his father, someone was asking about being hit by their father. His father takes the belt off the wall and he gives his son a spanking. He hits him as a punishment for having the sin of suffer of Tsar Balachai. The boy gets his spanking. He goes out of the room to cry, whatever. Nothing from the room. He goes back into the room where his father's sees. His father is crying. And painful to the son, he writes in the previous, more painful, more the sting of his father, mistaken. The sting of his father's tears hurt more than the sting of the belt on his rear end. Understand? A real father, a sincere father, sometimes has to punish a child. But when he punishes a child, he's not doing it out of anger, out of spite, out of jealousy. Someone told me about a father that had serious, got angry on 440, just dropped them off, and had to call someone to go pick them up. He dropped them off and drove away without his daughters. That's however. But normally a father, if he has to punish his children, if he's a real father, he loves his children, cares for his children, he feels pain. So the father had to hit his child, and after the child left the room, he was crying over the fact that he hit his child. Because of our sins, we were exiled from our land. And in fact, the only reason why we're in exile is not because we were able to conquer. No enemy was ever able to destroy the Jewish people. I repeat, no enemy has ever been able to destroy the Jewish people. God has exiled us because of our sins, and because we have angered God and because we have sinned, we have been allowed to become vulnerable and helpless in the face of our enemies that have destroyed us. So I kind of to give us grace, so to say, God protects us a little bit. They were exiled is because I know our father is forced to punish us, even though he's forced to exile us, as Rabbi Elijah is telling Rabbi Yossi, this beautiful statement in the Gemara. When you guys are praising and shaking his head, nostalgic for the temple, he's saying, woe, how great is Allah's children? Woe to the children who are exiled from their father's table. So right now, if all year God is in pain that the temple is empty, if all year God is in pain that we're in pain, and we haven't learned the lesson yet to love each other, to bring God is in pain too. So we have an obligation, Menachem, of to comfort the Father. Make sense what I said? It makes sense. But question is, how do we comfort the Father? That's heretic. It's okay. He's not going to be. Barbara's not going to ask any heretical questions, but you can ask a heretical question. What's the problem? Which is so God is crying. God punishes us, and He's crying as He punishes us. And so we have an obligation to comfort Him and to give Him consolation when He's in mourning. What's the problem with that? You know what the problem is? I'll tell God, I should comfort you for exiling us. What are you comfort? Which kind of Jew is crying in the 9 days because God is in pain, because God is in exile? A tzaddik, this is the Rebbe. The Rebbe cried with the pain of knowing that God is in pain. Yeah, the Rebbe did. But, and not me. Not me either. I'm not going to pretend. A tzaddik, I don't want to get too distracted on this point either, but it describes how tzaddikim, they're like a son that cares for the father more than they care for themselves. They're willing to sacrifice for themselves, for their father. Bnei Aliyah, whatever. There's holy Jews out there who are suffering in exile because Shechinta begalusa, which means the Shechinta is in exile. Such Jews exist. They exist. And it's important to remember that they exist and to recognize that we shouldn't be too complacent in exile, even though things are good for us, and even though we have kosher food, and even though we think we have safety and security in America. It's all can be gone in 2 days. But we're pretty complacent. So it's important to know that there are Jews that are feeling the pain of exile. Fine, that's beautiful. But guess what? I personally will not pretend to you that I right now am crying and having a hard time going to sleep tonight because God is in exile. I should. I wish I was on that spiritual level where I was able to feel the pain of my father, where I could feel the pain of God's exile and cry for God's suffering. But the reality is, and I'm being honest, I'm not. And the vast majority of Jews are not. Right? So when we say Shabbos, we bless the new month. And today we said Hallel and all that, and it's Rosh Chodesh, Menachem Av. And the words Menachem Av mean that I have to comfort the Father. Not that the Father is comforting me, but I'm comforting him. So although it's very beautiful, and although it's true, and yes, our Father is also in pain, guess what? I'm feeling the pain for me. I'm not feeling the pain for him. Right? Why do most people pray for Mashiach? Because God is in exile. Not really. You know, it's a beautiful joke. It's a story. They do exist. Heidi, you're right, they exist. And we have to remember that they exist. But they tell a story of this very wealthy businessman who was very successful. He wanted to have a scholar as a son-in-law. Back in the good old days in Europe, it was, you wanted, if you had money, you would marry off your daughter to a scholar. That was a sign of success. So he had money, and he pays the dowry. It was called, you had an Edom of Kest. If you had the money, you can not hire. If you had the money, you could find a very scholarly son-in-law who would marry your daughter, and you would commit to paying all of their living expenses for 10 years, for 15 years, whatever it was, 20 years, and knowing that you had a rich father-in-law that would pay your living expenses so you can sit and study Torah. The big scholars, the more wealthy you were, the bigger of a scholar you could get that would be able to sit and study undisturbed for many years. So this wealthy man, he finds a big scholar, and he has shares in the company. He owns stock. He's a part. He works one day. I said the story, right? One day, shock in town. This guy is bankrupt. Very successful. Bankrupt. And you believe it. Everybody was knew he was borrowing money. It was all a shell. The whole color apart. And they find out afterwards that a few days before, this son-in-law that knew nothing about the business sold all of his shares in his father-in-law's business, and he had cash. I couldn't believe it. He comes to someone and says, how did you know that I was struggling? Nobody knew. I didn't tell your mother-in-law. I didn't tell your wife. Nobody knew. How did you know? Right? You know the story. I said it so many times. So he said a few days ago I was in shul, and all of a sudden I heard you davening and praying, and you were crying, saying, God send Mashiach. Mashiach? So we must cry for Mashiach. You know why we're crying for Mashiach? Because someone is sick. Sadly, because we don't have money to cover the bill this month. Sadly, because we feel trapped. We feel we're in terrible situations. And because we're dealing with a person or an addiction, whatever, so an end to suffering, an end to exile, an end to illness, an end to suffering. Makes sense. That's why most of us, hopefully, crying for Mashiach, struggling with something. That's part of the problem. American Jews have such a hard time with Mashiach. We're not lacking anything. We're so comfortable. We have everything we need physically. We think we have everything we need spiritually because we have, some podcasts to listen to or whatever. And we're in a state of complacency, in a state of comfort. So we're not crying. We're not crying. Some of us. And then you have some people like Heidi that feel separated from Hashem, and so they're crying. But the point is, many of us don't cry for Mashiach because God is in pain. We're not crying because we feel the separation of God. So my question to you, it's not my question, the Rebbe's question. What I'm saying now is not my own heresy. The Rebbe himself asks this question. Everything I'm telling you tonight is from a Sikh of the Rebbe. It's why are we calling the month Menachem Av when we're not crying and we're not suffering in exile because of the pain of our father? And yet the month is called the comfort of the Father. That's not what's concerning us. That's not what's motivating us. We don't feel the pain of God in exile, of the Shekhinah in exile. We feel our own pain in exile. It's a good question, right? So we're really back to where we started. We're back to square one, which is we're trying to understand what the name of this month, Menachem, of comforting of the Father, what does that say to me and you? What inspiration? What message? What can we take for ourselves to find a source of strength, of inspiration in this dark, dark month that we're about to begin, that we're beginning? So I'm going to ask you a question. It's going to be a deep question. So let's hold your horses for a minute. We know that we're all right. What is the basis? What's the foundation of our relationship? Why are we God's chosen people? Simple. That part's simple. Why are we God's chosen people?
Because we said that we would do all the mitzvot.
Well, before we even agreed to God chose us.
Yes.
In a marriage, right? The man proposes and the woman says yes. So God proposed yes, meaning God chose us. Correct? We are the chosen people. Of course, I can't not say this famous clip from Fiddler on the Roof, right? One of the most famous lines of the whole Fiddler on the Roof. When he's walking home from the engagement party, and he's walking in the road, his friend, the police officer, tells him that there's going to be a pogrom. He turns to God and says, God, dear God, how's it? Dear God, he talks about, dear God, I know the exact words. I know we are the chosen people. But couldn't you choose somebody else? For a change, that's the word, right? Can you choose somebody else? So that's chosen people. So now here's the hard question. Chose us. Every holiday we say, Kivanu v'chartem mikol ha'amim. God, you chose us from all the nations, right? You have to osanu, and you loved us. You desired us. You exalted us. Which part of us, our souls, then the shama, the or did he choose our bodies? Let me repeat the question. Every Jew has two parts to him. We as a people have. There's two parts to every Jew. There's the body of the person, and there's the soul, the neshama of the soul, of the Jew. So when God chose us, our neshama, and then we got a body. Michelle says the body. Steve, what do you say? Our choice. Dave, also a smart choice. You can't go wrong. You guys say. Kim, what do you say?
I'm okay if I'm wrong.
What?
It's okay if I'm
Yeah.
wrong. I still go with the soul.
Might go with the soul, Robert.
I'm thinking about the fact that we have a divine soul, and that's why.
Correct. So it's a very different soul, which is why you can't have a marriage of a Jewish soul and non-Jewish soul, because it can't be two halves of the soul. The marriage is a creating of two halves of one soul. Every single creature has a soul, and you have a unique human soul that's unique to humans. And a Jew has a unique Jewish soul that's unique to Jews. So when God chose the Jewish people a choice, what does a choice mean? A choice is between two things that are somewhat similar, and I choose one. If they're not similar, no. I'll give you an example. Okay? Before I started class, so there's a rack hanging behind the door, a few ties hanging there, and I chose a tie. Now, there's also a raincoat. Shabbos, it was raining. Now, did I make a choice between putting on class or putting on a raincoat? Hanging there. There's no choice for a raincoat because I don't need a raincoat right now. First of all, thank God it's not raining. And even if it was raining, we're indoors and there's no leak, pretty safe. So if I would put on the raincoat, I'd just be sweaty now and I would look like an idiot. So, I didn't have to choose a raincoat now. A few different types. the same purpose of looking rabbinic, professional. I give this class, I wanted to put on the tie. So the only question was, I want this tie, or there's another tie that was, with stripes. Another tie is more dark. I had to choose that tie or this tie. This tie over another tie. Is there a reason why I chose this tie?
Yes.
What's the reason?
You didn't wear it last Monday.
I didn't wear last Monday, but a few ties I didn't wear last Monday. That's true. That's true. I can remember what tie I wore last. No idea what I wore 2 weeks ago already. I for sure don't remember. I'm sure that I wore the same tie like twice. My wife will tell you what she wore when we went dating like 15 years ago. She can tell you, yeah. So she can tell you what tie I wore on the day that the first high holiday service is. But I'll tell you what I promise you right now. It could be I wore this 2 weeks ago. I honestly don't remember. I don't remember. But I didn't wear last. But I have no idea. Maybe I wore it 2 weeks ago. I don't remember. But the point is, you said why I like it. Is I like this tie. First, is that a logical explanation why to choose one tie over another tie? No, it's not a logical explanation. Logic, once it's logical, it's not a choice. Pay attention to this. Once something is a logical choice, it's a I could do either. They're both choices. Decisions are something I think about, I calculate, I make a list, I discuss it with, I sleep on it, I make a decision. Although in America, maybe in English, we interchange the words very often. If you want to be off Hebrew, we talk about a choice. Choice means that there's two equal things in front of me. Two things that are very, very similar. And there's no real difference between them. Because if there'd be a real difference, I'll be choosing one over the other. That would be a thought-out decision. I'm basically compelled to choose one over the other. A choice that I made on this tie was not logical. There was no intellectual thought process that made me choose one over the other.
The choice has to be spur of the moment.
Like more when I chose that moment, this tie and that tie, it was a decision. It just came from me because I like it. The pleasure I have, I like something, is not logical. It's not, I can't verbalize. I can't intellectually explain it to you. It just came from me.
So if I wanted to choose, I think, between being here physically or watching your class online, and it's still watching you, I still have to choose.
But the difference between the two is that there's put the comments, by the way. I'm looking at the comments about why I would choose this tie. I'm going to answer your question. I'll get to the color. So when you have two choices, two options what to do on a Monday night, I have an option to go to the class, or an option to sit at home and watch at home. Each one has pros and cons. The pros of staying at home is I can sit on my couch and I can, I don't have to get dressed. And the cons is I don't get to talk to them before or after, maybe the class or whatever calculations you make. So now you're making a logical thought process that was going through your brain. And the moment we're in the brain, we're now making intellectual decisions. That's not how Torah or Hasidic philosophy defines a choice. The moment it's in the brain, it's a decision. It's a plan. It's an analysis. And now my brain is compelling one choice or another choice. You felt that you would learn better in person than you would learning by a computer. I know I do, right? So because you felt that you would gain more from tonight's class by being here and getting that direct connection that you wouldn't get on the computer, so that's why you made that decision to come. But that's a decision you made. And for someone else, they connect over a computer. All you beautiful people that are watching us that are connecting, and you chose, instead of watching, I don't know, what's on TV tonight? I have no idea. Monkeys jumping, I don't know. Oh, no, the Olympics, right? Instead of choosing to watch, let's say the Olympics, yeah? Is it over? No, I thought, whatever. So the Olympics, okay, you could have watched the Olympics, and instead of watching the Olympics, you're watching me. That's not It's not a choice. It's a decision you made. You said, what's going to be more productive? What will give me a better value of my time? What will give me a greater sense of fulfillment? And the moment you're thinking about it, analyzing it, it's now a decision, it's not a choice. So when I choose this tie, I'm saying the color is nicer. There's no sentimental value to this tie over any other tie. I mean, it's all ties fit the same, I used to make a joke about my gartel. The gartel, we've heard two. So I had my favorite not long ago. So I was joking, like I still fit into the same gartel that I had when I got married. The same, So the same tie, the tie could fit no matter how fat I would get. The tie would still fit. You know what I'm saying? Ties are pretty cool. So it's not that it fits better. The color, I have this color, I have that color. Why do I like the way a color looks on me? It's not intellectual. You're already going deeper than that. You're already going to a place of, I like it. It makes me feel good. I like the way it looks on me. I like the way it looks on me is not an intellectual decision. It's a choice that I made. So is that clear? It's very important. There was no choice between my tie and my raincoat tonight. Because the raincoat is not what I was looking for in this setting. If I was looking, I put on the tie. And the fact that on Shabbos I put on the raincoat and not a tie wasn't a choice. The rain was compelling, right? So it wasn't a choice to wear a raincoat on Saturday instead of a tie. It was a compelled decision I had to make. The tie hanging, that's a choice. There's nothing forcing it. It wasn't forced, it was free. It was. So now let's go back to the question. When God says that he chose us from all the other nations, Kivanu v'charta mikol ha'am, God chose us. What's the us that he chose? The Jewish soul? What's that? What's the choice? What's the comparison? What's it compared to? There's nothing else on the shelf that's similar to the Jewish soul. The Jewish soul is unique. So that's not a choice. That's a decision. The choice is the body of the Jew and the body of a non-Jew. Is there any difference? Is there any difference between the human body of a Jewish person or a non-Jewish person? No. There's no difference. You can't tell the body apart. Not only can't tell, there's no difference. And both Jews and non-Jews have human bodies. And every single human being has this body, which is a gift from God, and is to be treated with respect and dignity, etc., etc., etc. But the point is that when God chose us, what was he choosing? Our body. The physical aspect of us.
That's what I said.
Yes, that's what Michelle said. So, now, where does choice come from? As we already started saying, it comes from. So Heidi wanted to take care of it. She's blessed. She got to hear the teachings. I'm glad that my planned choice. Heidi's saying my planned choice. The moment that something is a plan, it's not a choice. Even if in English language we're not careful to use the words correctly and properly. In reality, a plan and a choice are very, very different. A plan is something that I thought out, I analyzed, I created a decision where I want to go, what's the plan, how to get there. That's a plan. A choice is something that came from me. It wasn't compelled by the external considerations. It wasn't compelled, it wasn't forced, it wasn't analyzed. It just came from me. That a choice reflects a deeper aspect of me than my intellectual decisions. Intellectual decisions are intellectual decisions. So I can make decisions that don't really reflect me. I'm just smart enough to know this is the right thing to do. Right? Some people are not so smart, so they make stupid decisions. Doesn't mean that they're bad people. Doesn't mean that they're not so smart. And some people can make very smart decisions, and they can do very well with numbers and invest a lot of money, become very rich because they're smart and make good financial decisions. Does that reflect who they are as a human being inside, what their essence is? No. And because someone made bad decisions, does that reflect who their essence is? No. So they made a bad decision. They ended up in jail. It doesn't mean that they're inherently an evil person. Again, it could be there are people that are evil. But the point is the decisions don't really reflect who you are at your core. But a spontaneous decision, you chose to wear a tie, this tie, or that tie, you can kind of get a little bit of a, now I'm not an expert to be able to tell colors and this and that, but a choice expresses my deeper identity. It expresses my essence in the way that my choices, my decisions, and my intellectual thought processes can. So when God chooses people, you guys ready for this? And when I say He chose the Jewish people, I mean, which is inherently similar to any human being in the universe. That choice, which is almost seemingly looks random and not calculated and thought out, that random, so to say, choice of God reflects the essence of God. That's a reflection not of God's thought process, not of what God prioritizes or analyzes or thinks is more important, less important, but what God just chose because He chose it for no other reason, because there was nothing compelling Him to choose a Jewish body over the body of a non-Jew. The bodies are the same. There's no real difference. This tie or that tie, there's not really a difference in this tie or a different tie hanging in my closet. So one's like this, and one's floral, and one's a stripe. There's not a difference. It's the same thing. Same thing. And because that God chose us, we had to see a reflection and a connection to the essence of God. And this idea is a tremendously important idea in Chassidus. Hopefully, I understood with a little bit. But because there's time constraints, I want to take the idea home now.
So once God chose us, our souls changed?
No. The soul of a Jew, the question was, did our souls change because God chose us? No. God chose us. Our soul existed before God put it into a body. And the soul remains the soul after it leaves the body. The soul is one aspect of us. We have two different parts of our identity. We have a soul, and that soul part of identity is not coming from the essence of God's choice. It's coming because God created a soul. It's not a creation, it's an emanation of God, it's from the breath of God, it's from the machshav of God. To go to where the soul comes from right now. But the point is, the body of the Jew reflects a choice that God made, a free choice. And that choice didn't come from God's intellect, didn't come from His essence. And therefore, the logical condition of that thought is that the body of a Jew, our physical needs, our physical wants, our physical urges, our physical impulses, the physical needs of a person's body are reflections not of the soul, but of God's essence that chose us. And therefore, when the Jew is lacking something, when the Jew needs money, when the Jew needs food, when the Jew needs a healing, when the Jew needs a salvation from whatever issues he's dealing with at work, from his boss, whatever, and he cries out to God, he says, God, send me money. I'm bankrupt. What is he really feeling deep down within that, what he thinks is an urge for money, is actually a reflection of God in his body. And therefore, the fact that we have physical needs and physical wants and physical things that are missing, God has a need. And the essence of God is reflected through our physical body. This is it's an action. There's so many extensions to what I'm saying to you tonight. So many. But I want to stay very, very focused on just the part of comforting the Father. Of Menachem. There's more that I wanted to talk about, but I knew this long. The point is as follows. When God is with us in exile, I'm going just to this point. We say God is with us in exile. Who is us that God is with? Is it our souls? Or is God with us even with our bodies? Is God with the soul of the Jew? Or is God even found, is God suffering together with our bodily needs?
Yes.
Our physical illness is a reflection of God's spiritual illness, of God's longing, of God's yearning. Our lacks, the reason why we pray to God, We think we're praying to God. Why? Because I need money. I need to pay the contractor this week and I don't have it yet, so I'm praying for money. Guess what? Although that's what I'm intellectually thinking, on a deeper level, the reason why I have that need is because my needs are a reflection of the fact that God chose my physical body and the physical needs of my physical body. And therefore, the connection that I have to God at that moment is not just to the part of God that intellectually chose my soul, but to the essence of God that literally chose, randomly chose, without any force, my physical body that has a physical. And so, I don't have time to go through all the text now, but maybe we'll just read one text. And this, I'm going to do it like really just like with the point. I'm going to under dramatize it. But if you look in the Sifri on chapter 35, verse 4, which is where God tells us not to defile it, because I myself, God says, I'm living there among people. Sifri says that in whose the verse says that God is in our midst, right? So Chaviv in Yisrael says, Chaviv in Yisrael, beloved of Israel, for even when they are impure, the Shekhinah rests among them. Who's with them in the midst of their uncleanness? Rabbi Nathan says, Chaviv in Yisrael, beloved of Israel, for wherever they are exiled, the Shekhinah is with them. They were exiled to Egypt, the Shekhinah was with them, and the verses, they were exiled to Bavel, the Shekhinah was with them. They were sent to Elam, which is in the north, with the Assyrians, the Shekhinah was with them. They were exiled to Edom, the Shekhinah was with them. So when they return, the Shekhinah will return with them. This is all the statement of Rabbi Nathan. Okay, Rabbi Nathan is saying, let's hold this thought, my friends. Rabbi Nathan is saying, Jewish people, that God is with them. Wherever they go, God is with them. Now comes along Rebbe. Who's Rebbe, the author of the Mishnah? He didn't just make up extra words from the rabbi, certain words of a page to sell a book, by fill up the article. Rebbe says an analogy that will explain to you this idea. An analogy to what is this matter compared. A king says to his servant, why do you search for me? I am with my son. Whenever you need me, I am with my son. For I, the Lord, dwell in the midst of the children of Israel. What is Rebbe saying? He's giving an example that seemingly is not saying anything. Let's analyze this for a second. Rebbe, why are we precious? Because where it goes with us. Comes Rebbe to give an analogy, as if you don't understand that idea. Did you not understand that? It's pretty simple. And says, let me give you an example. To what is this matter compared to a king who says to his servant, why do you search for me? Why are you looking for me? You're looking for me? I'll tell you where to find my son. Wherever I am, if you need me, it's pre-cell phones. Today you needed someone just call. Before a cell phone, my son's house. For I am the Lord who dwell. And that verse of I dwell in the midst of the children of Israel is on the verse where God is impure because I will be dwelling amongst you. So I'm going to go straight to the point. What is Rebbe saying over here that's adding to what Rabbi Nassan said? Rabbi Nassan says, precious are the Jewish people. Why are we precious? Because God is with us. That's God is with us, etc. Okay, beautiful. Very nice. God is with us. The Shekhinah is with us. Wherever we go into exile, God is with us. But that's referring to the soul of the Jew. Comes Rebbe and says something much, much more. It's not just that God goes together with us like two friends going together. The bond of us, God, is the bond of a father and a son. Is the bond that can never be broken. It's a bond not that came from an intellectual decision that I intellectually see the value of the Jew. Because if my choice to choose the soul of a Jew is intellectual, guess what? If you sin, I can make a choice to abandon you and go somewhere else. Right? You chose, let's say you made a plan to to watch this class, whatever it is. Just hit this. And then, guess what happens? After that, you decide it's boring. I don't like it. Okay, I changed my plan. Let me repeat that last thing for those that missed it on my personal page. I'm going to repeat what I just said. When God is saying that wherever you want to find me, go look for me like a father is found by his son's house, what God is saying here is that the relationship between us and God is not a decision that God made based on our quality. God analyzed the Jewish soul, and he analyzed the non-Jewish soul, and he chose it, he made a decision, I want to go to the Jewish soul, because then if we sin, if we become impure, we can lose it. But what God is saying in this statement, the example of Rebbe's example is saying that when you want to find, the father is saying to the servant, you want to find me? Go look at my son's house. My essence is with my son no matter what happens. I can never be lost from my son. I can never not be with my son. It looks like I'm in exile. The father had to hit his son and take out the belt and give his son a spanking. And now the son is crying and the father is also crying. So it seems like the relationship is broken. But we have the ability, by our physical needs, by our praying for physical things, by our crying about Mashiach, because we're suffering in the darkness of exile with so many enemies surrounding us that want to kill us, and we see the anti-Semitism getting worse and worse, and we see the hatred around us, and we say, God, enough, we need Mashiach. Not because we feel spiritual reasons for Mashiach, but because we feel unsafe in the world. That unsafeness is not from our soul, it's from our body. But our body is connected to God on an essential bond. The bond of a father and a son. The bond of a father and a son is not an intellectual decision. It's a bond of the essence. And therefore, during this month, more than any other time during the year, we have the ability in the darkness, because of the darkness, to reveal that bond that we have with God, that essential bond that we have with God. And because we can reveal that essential bond, we can bring comfort to God himself. And that's why during these times, during these days, we have accustomed to learn extra Torah. More Torah than we do all year. The Rebbe it wasn't the Rebbe's idea, the Rebbe didn't create this idea, but that he encouraged that we should have every night a siyum, a completion of a tractate of Talmud. 7 o'clock, and listen online to a Rebbe from Arkansas, complete a tractate on the Sefta Mecheres and the firstborn. Finished, I learned extra Torah. It's a custom to give extra charity during these 9 days. So Tzion, Mishpat Tipada, the Haftorah this week will be that Tzion, Zion, is redeemed through justice and through charity. B'Shaveha B'Stak, its capital will be returned through charity. So we give extra charity. And in fact, the Rebbe explains so beautifully in the end of the Sikha that every time, all the extra laws of these 9 days, these extra laws help us feel more of a connection to God than we feel normally. So this morning, we don't take hot showers during the 9 days because it's comfort. Now, in more ancient times, they wouldn't take showers at all because bathing was more of a delicacy. Today, all rabbis understand that it's basic hygiene to take showers. We don't take showers for pleasure only, but a hot shower is still pleasurable. So you don't take a hot shower. Take a lukewarm shower. So this morning, when I made sure that my shower was not hot, it was lukewarm, in the shower, I was experiencing a bond that I can have with God that I don't normally have in the shower 350 days of the year. Less because of Shabbos, but whatever. You understand? And tomorrow I'm going to go out to dinner with someone, and I'm going to go to a nice restaurant, and I'm not going to have meat. We don't eat meat during the 9 days. We eat fish. So speaking to this person today, and I was like, oh. And so when I'm enjoying a nice kosher dinner and I'm having fish instead of having a steak, at that moment, I will be experiencing a physical bodily experience. I'll be reflecting a bond that exists on the essence of my soul with the essence of God. The bond of a father and a son that is a bond of essence. A bond that can't be broken. And that, my friends, the bond comes from Hashem's heart. Exactly right. Exactly right. It comes from Hashem's heart. Not from his brain. Not from heart is not the right word. It comes from his essence. Heart is emotion. The bond comes from the essence of Hashem. And that is Menachem of. So we reveal our essential bond to God, and then we, the Son, have the ability to comfort the Father. Got it?
Don't we do that anytime we do a mitzvah?
Anytime we do a mitzvah. But it's even more so when we cry out for Mashiach, we do extra things now in a time of darkness. For Mashiach, it's even more. But yes, any day of the year you do a mitzvah, you're revealing that bond to us and God. As I said earlier, this idea of the physical body being chosen by God has so many parts to it, so many takeaways regarding the importance of doing a physical mitzvah. But we're not going to go there now. Another time, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll deal with it. But now we're just going to remember the power we have to give comfort to God. Anyway, good evening, my friends. I hope you all enjoyed. I apologize sincerely to Marja, Kareen, to Alice. You can, the audio is there. Fix it on YouTube, maybe we'll fix it later. You can hear me now. So next Monday night is no class with Tisha B'Av. So next Monday, the service is in Shul. There's going to be at the schedule's on the website already. It's on the email, but I think the fast starts, if I'm not mistaken. How the fast starts? I don't remember. I sent out the email. It's on the screen lobby also. I think 8:30. I think the services, if I'm not mistaken. No, 9 o'clock is probably the fast starts like 8:20. Out of 7. I was kind of late. 7. 8:30. If I'm not mistaken, 8:30 is Mariv. If I'm not mistaken. There's going to be another email going out this weekend with the whole schedule again. But 8:30, if I'm not mistaken, is services. And Eicha you can stream online. Eicha is not a blessing. So like the Megillah, which you have to make a blessing to fulfill the mitzvah, you need to hear the actual Megillah. Eicha you can do by yourself, so you can do it online. So maybe I'll stream on my Facebook page next Monday night. But really, you should come to shul, because now we're not reading the words. It's feeling the energy, feeling the sadness, and we sit on the floor, and the lights will be dim, and we sit like mourners. So that's next Monday night. So you should, yeah. So you should all come back next Monday night, but there won't be any, class per se. It'll be.
Did we do it in the dark too?
Dark. It wasn't dark. I mean, some lights were on, but yes, I turned off some of the lights. Yes, some of the lights were off. So the room is meant to be Jewish law. So the room is dark, and it's meant to be like a feeling of sadness. That's what it's meant to be. And so we Eicha, and then maybe we'll talk. And then Tuesday, the service will be at 10 o'clock in the morning, followed by Eicha, by lamentation. Sorry, women could come too at 10:30. Short, there's no towel and tefillin. In the afternoon will be mincha, and then the fast is over. I don't know, 8:26 maybe. I don't remember. Again, it was in the Friday email. I'll send out another email this week with the schedule. It was in the Friday email. If you look in the Friday email, it was in there. Anyway, my friends.